This week marks a very important milestone for me personally. This week, 10 years ago, I first walked through the doors of our Boys and Girls Club. Wow, when I wrote the speech, I didn't think I'd get emotional, but especially this early. I walked through the club 10 years ago as a volunteer, and the goal was to spend a couple of weeks as a volunteer just to mentor some kids. And the first lesson that I learned, which is probably the most important lesson that I've learned, is that mentoring is not something that happens over the course of a couple of weeks. Mentoring, true mentoring, is about relationships. It's about building meaningful relationships with people. It's about investing in another person and believing in their potential. True mentoring has the power to save lives. Every person in this room is here today because of someone else in your life. Every person in this room has experienced success because of the generosity of others. Someone invested in you. Someone believed in your potential. Someone was there to help you get up when you stumbled. And while we'd like to think that this type of a resource is available to absolutely everyone that grows up in this community and across this country, the truth is that that isn't the case. In fact, today in our communities, we have several kids that don't have access to quality adult role models that will help guide the way, role models that will help motivate, engage them, and inspire them to reach great milestones, role models that will set the example and help them unlock their potential. There are kids today that simply don't have the same resource that others do. As I look back at the last 10 years and the milestones that we've had as an organization, I can't help but think about the major accomplishments that we have seen as an organization. You see, 10 years ago when I walked into this club, I also learned another valuable lesson. When I first walked into the club, and I remember as if it was yesterday, I saw something. I saw potential. I saw a good club doing good work. And for 50 years, we had tremendous impact in our community. Over 70,000 alumni to this point. And I walked into this organization, and it was doing good work. I met good people and good kids. And while good is acceptable to most, being good isn't acceptable to me. What I saw was the potential for us as an organization to be great. What I saw was the potential for our kids to be great. And in order for us to reach that type of a milestone as an organization, it would require us to look at things differently. For those of you that have read Good to Great, you might know where I'm going with this. The difference between being good and being great is significant. The reason that few are great and more are good is because it's more comfortable and it's easier to achieve goodness. It takes discipline, it takes courage, and it takes hard work as an organization for you to achieve greatness. So for the last 10 years, we've been transforming into the organization that you see before you. As I look at the last 10 years, the first thing that we changed 10 years ago was to design a new strategy for how we serve kids. We introduced what we now call our impact model. And to put it simply, when you walk in through a Boys and Girls Club, up until this point, kids were really just it was up to them to figure out where they go and what programs they participate in. We designed a strategy that stacked the deck in their favor so that all kids go through all programs and that there was a balance in this experience, that we can ensure quality, we can ensure programs that were relevant, and ensuring that every day kids went through an academic reinforcement, a physical program, and an enrichment. And I'm not going to get into the weeds and get stuck in the types of programs that we're offering and how diverse our slate of programs is for enrichment. But the point is that we designed a new strategy and we innovated in a field that had 100 years of tradition. And this is what we do today. It continues to evolve and it continues to adapt to the needs of this community. This is the games room. This is what you saw when you walked into a Boys and Girls Club. Here's our building. For 50 years, had served 70,000 kids. And while this was a huge accomplishment for us, what got us to this point was not going to get us to the next point. The next accomplishment was this family strengthening initiative that was mentioned earlier. See, we did an analysis of all the resources that were available to parents in our community. And what we found was that a lot of our parents lacked certain resources. And more importantly, when we looked at this analysis, we identified programs that existed, and more importantly, we identified programs that didn't exist and were necessary. So what we did is we designed this family strengthening initiative. We recruited over 30 nonprofits. We invited them into the Boys and Girls Club, which makes a lot of sense and everyone understands, but isn't the norm in the nonprofit industry. We invited over 30 nonprofits. We didn't charge them a penny for rent, and we brought in organizations that had a different competency than we did. Whether it was to teach English as a second language to adults, to help families budget and plan for their financial security and stability, or whether it was to introduce a fitness or a health program so that parents are modeling the behavior to their kids. But we provided a slate of programs to parents, and we essentially transformed our Boys and Girls Club into a full-service family resource center. As was mentioned, last year we launched and completed our expansion campaign. And as a result, we renovated and we expanded the main club facility. After 60 years of service and after decades of serving kids in this community, we equipped this facility to serve the next generation of kids. And more importantly, we equipped our organization to be ready for the future in the 21st century. What you see is the new Boys and Girls Club. Our goal was clear: to introduce the 21st century Boys and Girls Club. That was the challenge that we issued to our board. That was the challenge that we issued to our architects and our design team. And this is what we came up with. The first thing you'll notice is that we don't actually have a computer lab. And while that sounds odd, what that really means is we turned this entire facility into a tech center. I'm going to tell you something that you may already know, but the idea of a computer lab is dead. Or at the very least, it's dead in this facility. The idea that kids will visit a lab twice a week for 45 minutes and get some access to computers isn't going to cut it. So we created an environment that kids, as soon as they walk through our facility, are touching technology. And not just one piece of technology, but several platforms of technology, whether it's iPads or Chromebooks or tablets or laptops. We've introduced robotics. And the idea is simple. It's not that these are separate programs, it's that we've integrated this into the day-to-day, just like you have integrated technology into your day-to-day. That's the expectation of the world that's waiting for them. So this was innovative, and we've heard that from other Boys and Girls Clubs and from our partners. But in order to be innovative, you have to continue to evolve. That's the expectation. Before I get into specifics over what we're doing in this building, I'd like to review a few milestones that have also been relevant to us as an organization. And these milestones have happened outside of the doors at the Boys and Girls Club. You see, as we look at the last 10 years, it's hard for us to imagine how this world has changed in such a short amount of time. You're going to see a photo. How many of you owned one of these at one point? A flip phone, right? We were happy when we could make a phone call and maybe you had a few friends that you could text, and that was pretty much it. That or Brick Breaker, right? You can play a couple games, and that was pretty much the functionality of these phones. 10 years ago, that's what technology looked like. The devices that have become a part of your life, the things that you would probably have a panic attack if they weren't attached to you at that moment. We've all experienced that. You don't know where your cell phone is, and it's an immediate panic attack. You don't know what you're going to do for the next 5 minutes until you locate your device. That's the world we live in today. The devices that have become critical, your iPad, your iWatch, your iPhone, all these devices have become a part of our day-to-day life. And that's happened not just in the last 10 years, but just in the last 5 years. Several of the devices you're using today didn't exist 5 years ago. So that's pretty interesting for us to look at time that way and how technology has moved at an exponential rate just in the last 10 years. You know, I look at some of the devices. I try to stay current as much as I can with technology that's out here now. And there's a few devices that I was introduced to recently that I think are pretty strong indicators that we live in a different age. So there's a device that I just learned about called Myris. And it's a device that looks like a little webcam, will scan your eye, an optical scan, and it's used for security reasons. It'll help unlock your laptop or log into a program. That's its current application. Its future application will be used to start your vehicle, to unlock your door at your home, to log into a special program. Its practical use is tremendous. And while that may be scary because I'm seeing the faces in the room, that may be scary that you're going to have a device that scans your eye. I agree with you. But this is where the world is going. This optical scan is more accurate than your fingerprint is today by 100 times more. So we look at iWatches and all these devices, and yeah, they look great, and I guess some people could say that they look trendy, but the reality is there's an actual practical use to it. Think about how you have more access to data about your own physiology than you did just last year. I mean, people are able to track their sleeping patterns, their health indicators, and they're able to use data that's practical to their body to know how they're doing in live time. That technology didn't exist 10 years ago. The practical use of this in the future is that you will be able to map your physiology, your body, in the same way that you can map directions today for Google Maps. And you will be as informed about your own body and how to deal with disease and illness and any other issues in the same way that it takes for you to get to this location today. We look at Lily camera, which is one of my favorite devices that I've seen out there. Drones, that's the scary thing that we're hearing right now, drones, right? We think that they're gonna watch us while we sleep. This is a device called the Lily camera, and as you can see it, you can hold it in your hand. What you don't see is that there's a component that goes to your wrist, and there's a little GPS device that connects to Lily camera. And what it is, you simply throw Lily camera out. Now, if I were to grab, I bet some of you guys have some really nice cameras at home, maybe a Nikon or a Canon or something really nice. If I were to grab your camera today and I were just to throw it out, it's not going to do what this device does. This device, before it hits the ground, its rotors start spinning and starts floating, and then will shoot up into the sky immediately. And it's tied to your wrist, and it will actually follow you around and record. So you may not have a practical use today for this device. You may not want a camera following you around, watching you, doing whatever you're doing. But I've seen this application, and there's snowboarders that are at the top of a mountain, and they're about to go down. They throw Lily, and it almost hits the ground and pops back up, and then the snowboarder shoots down the mountain, and Lily follows the snowboarder. I've seen the same application for kayakers and for hikers. I saw Lily being thrown into the water, fell into the water, at which point I said, that can't be good, right? Imagine if you threw your cell phone into the water and the amount of panic that would go through your body. Lily pops out of the water and does exactly what it's intended to do. These are the devices that exist today. Isn't that amazing? That's the age that we live in. More exciting than what exists today is what will exist tomorrow. I read an article recently that is proof positive that the future is now. This is NASA astronaut Barry Butch Wilmore, and he is stationed at the International Space Station. Sounds pretty cool, right? He's up in space, and he needed a ratchet wrench. Not just like a regular, just a specific ratchet wrench. And I'm reading this story, and I'm like, I know where you're coming from, guy. I've been there. I've been at my house working on projects, and I need a specific kind of a tool. I don't have it. I'm going to go to Home Depot. Apparently, Butch doesn't have a Home Depot in space that he can shoot to, right? So what's option one? The next equipment supply could be months or even a year away given the resupply schedule that NASA has planned. So this is what happens. a team of engineers at NASA, of all places, a team of engineers from NASA in Alabama, they, over the course of a few days, design the exact ratchet wrench that Butch needs up in space, and they send it to him via email. And some of you may be wondering, well, what good is an email for the issue that he's going to need to solve? And some of you may even be wondering, you get email in space? Yes. Not only did he get an email in space, but Butch here printed that ratchet wrench on a 3D printer in space. This is the point where I stopped reading the story and I had to start looking for other sources because I could not believe that I am alive at a time that we can email a wrench into space. It's true. This happened. This happened 6 months ago. This is the world that we live in. So some of you may be wondering why that's relevant. Why is this important? What does NASA have to do with Boys and Girls Club of Santa Ana? It has everything to do with the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Ana. Because we just emailed a wrench into space. And we have kids that are growing up in our community that don't have the basic supplies for school. They don't have a computer at home. They don't have a connection to the internet. Therefore, they don't have a connection to the world. That's why it's important. So I've been doing a lot of research over the last several months just on this issue because this means a lot. This is, in my opinion, the highest priority we have. There is no higher priority than to prepare our kids, every kid, for the 21st century, the world that is waiting for them. So I start looking at Forbes and Wall Street Journal and the Times and all these different places, and I start to find some pretty incredible data. Over 1 million jobs are projected to be unfilled just in the field of software development and computer science by the year 2020. That means that the kids that are in the first grade today showing up to this Boys and Girls Club will be old enough for the workforce when these jobs are open. Jobs that existed in this field that were earning $90,000 plus in 2012 are projected to grow at double the pace than any other profession that exists. You want to solve the unemployment problem that we have in this country? You want to solve the economic crisis that we see? How about we start preparing kids for the jobs that are actually out there and waiting for them? All this research and all these stories, they all have the consistent message. This is the reality, and the future is now. Computer science is no longer a good to know. I believe, and this is what the research is telling us, computer science will be as important as English, as math, as science, as history, as any other subject that we consider to be a part of the core. You see, we don't teach English because we expect every single student to become an author. We don't teach biology because we expect every single student to become a doctor. And therefore, we don't teach computer science because we expect every single student to be a software developer. These are all now fundamental skills that every student will need in order to be successful in a global economy. That's the truth. We are preparing kids for an economy that simply does not exist anymore. Let me say that again. We are preparing kids for an economy that does not exist anymore. That means we are still teaching kids skills and knowledge that they will never apply in their lifetime. That also means that we're not teaching kids skills and knowledge that they will apply in their lifetime. So this is what this means to us. This just set the table. The future is now. This is what the world is telling us is coming. We have a pretty significant gap ahead of us. Talk about a call to action. Our Boys and Girls Club has adapted and evolved based on this data alone. This is what's driving what we are introducing as the 21st Century Boys and Girls Club. You saw the building, and that's great. The Joe McPherson Center for Opportunity is more than just a traditional Boys and Girls Club. It's a place that inspires hope. It's a place that empowers a community. It's a family resource center. It's a tutoring center. It's a fitness center. It's a place where kids can go and feel safe. They can feel loved. And it's a place where they can unlock their potential. As we look at this experience, you're going to see a few things. The first is our kids using robotics. Yes, that's robotics. So we have devices like this. This is a partnership with Lego Robotics where kids get to do what they want to do, which is to work with stuff and to tinker and to problem solve and to unlock skills that they didn't know they have. So they get to build robots, and then this device in the middle is essentially its computer, and they get to code this device so that it can perform certain functions. And some of you may be looking at this and go, that's a really fancy toy. And you may be right. This could be used as a toy. But I look at this technology and I don't see a toy. I don't even see a tool. I see something that will unlock someone's future. You'll also see something else in this picture. I just spoke to you a moment ago about Butch and his 3D printer story up in space. We emailed her, I don't know if you remember, but we emailed a wrench into space, right? This is a picture of our kids using their 3D printer just a few weeks ago. In December, Butch used a 3D printer to print his wrench, and now our kids are using a 3D printer. And while we look at this device, again, I don't look at it as a tool that can print stuff or something that can manufacture things. I look at that 3D printer as a key to their future. Because when I walked through the Boys and Girls Club today, 10 years after I showed up, I get to peek into the future. I get to see what our kids will become someday. I get to see innovation in live time. As exciting as it is to walk this building, we have a 1-to-1 ratio for technology. Kids walk in, and for every kid, there's a piece of technology. And I mentioned the platforms, iPads and Chromebooks and laptops. That's great. If we walk to this facility in 5 years and any of those devices are in that building, we're not doing our job. Because in order to be innovative, in order for our kids to have access to the best technology, we need to continue to bring in the newest and the best resources for our kids. Our kids deserve nothing less than that. So while the doors at the Boys and Girls Club today are not the exact same doors that I walked through 10 years ago, we put nicer doors in. They're not the same doors, but I can tell you with full confidence that for 60 years, kids that have walked through the doors of the Boys and Girls Club have received world-class mentorship. Kids that have walked through this Boys and Girls Club have had access to the best resources and the best people. Walking through the Boys and Girls Club doors can mean the difference between life and death. And while the doors may not be the same, I feel confident that as kids come through these doors, we're building a bridge between now and tomorrow. We're building a bridge between where they are and where they can be. We're introducing the 21st Century Boys and Girls Club. There's no higher priority than to make sure that every child we serve is prepared for the world that's waiting for them. We're able to do this because people believe in our mission, they are inspired by our vision, and they invest in our kids. And without that, we can't do what we do on a daily basis. We thank you for being here. We thank you for being a part of our mission. We thank you for being a part of our family. And most importantly, we thank you for investing in each and every child that we serve. Thank you.